Guys, welcome to the first part of our two-part series of this Summer Mountain Majesty tutorial. I've got two images here. One is a painting, the practice painting that I did earlier, and then the original photo that I printed both of them off so that we can kind of look back at them and use them as a reference guide to create our painting. So looking at the photo, we're going to first kind of determine where our mountain is going to be in reference to our canvas. And we're going to basically notch out where each of the peaks and the slopes are in this mountain range in perspective of the canvas. So when you look at the top of the photo itself, you can kind of determine where that highest peak is going to be. And it looks like it's a couple inches down from the top of the canvas and then a little over halfway, the little over halfway mark, right about there. And you just want to make a little notch, just a little notch where that first peak is. Find the next peak over and it's a little lower, put a notch there. And keep on going. There's another one a little higher up, and then it looks like it just kind of trails down to the side of the canvas. And from there, you can just kind of start connecting your peaks. And then looking at the other side, there's this ridge that kind of runs along where the sun peeks out. And it's maybe about 4 inches down and over, depending on the size of the canvas that you're using. But then it meets and goes up to another point, and then another, and then to the top of that peak again. Once you've got those kind of lined out, you can fine tune them a little bit, just make your mountain ridges and peaks just a little more detailed as much as you want. I mean, we're going to really detail them with our painting when we get to that point. But for now, giving you an idea of how this mountain kind of works and connects and looks, just an idea. Doesn't kind of like a guideline, doesn't have to be perfect. So now over here we have way off in the distance another lower mountain ridge that's like a darkish blue. Actually, I think it's a little higher than that. It's more up here like that. It doesn't matter. I mean, we are going to be able to paint right over a lot of these pencil markings, but it just helps to give you an idea of placement for everything. Now I'm going to just mark some of these lines that are running through the mountains, some of these ridges. Some sides are going to be like a darker shadowy side, and the other side's going to be lighter where the sun's hitting it. And there's going to be little ravines and valleys in the mountains and stuff like that. So I'm just kind of getting an idea of where those are going to be. I've got some lines coming down here. They're not real visible, but gives me a better idea of where my lower hills are going to come up as well. I kind of think I want that one to be just a little high, a little more defined. Yeah, make it put it up there a little bit higher peak for me. And of course, by the time all of this is said and done, your mountain is going to look very uniquely your own. It's not going to look, no two mountains are the same, right? So don't worry if your lines are not exactly the same as mine. It's just helps getting us started on this whole thing. Now on this side where the back darker ridges, you're going to start your hill, and it just kind of swoops down to the base of the mountain there, and then goes back up. And on the other side, just a little swoop like that. And then it looks like there's another little hillside a little bit lower that comes down and then goes back up on that side. And then we're just gonna kind of put in this meadow area here right before the creek. Just adding in a little bit more hill detail. And now there's a little dark creek that runs through here at some point, and I think it's about here. And it's really dark. You don't really see much of it at all, but there is an actual creek right around in here. And then after the creek, you have the rest of this meadow and flowers right up in the forefront. So flowers here, a little stream, a little meadow, and then we got some hills over here. So now it's all kind of put on the canvas so that we have a better idea of what we're painting, what colors we'll be using for each section. I think the stream's just a little more narrow, and then it gets a little wider right down there and then comes back up. So a little narrow on each side and a little wider in the center. I'm just kind of cleaning up all my pencil marks so that I know so I know a little better what I was doing. Okay. Looks pretty good. I don't know, I think the hill is maybe a little bit higher up on this side. We'll get it'll all come together. But it's always good to just kind of yeah, it's a little higher up coming down. Swoops down there. Oh yeah, we got our sloping hills and a little stream and our flowers, and yeah, that gets us started, gets us guided to where we want to be, where we want to move on next. We're going to start with our sky, and we're going to start with our 1 inch wide. And on our palette, we're going to put in our yellows and reds, making those pretty orangey colors up there. And we're going to just do those colors for now. We'll save the blue until after it dries a little, because you don't want your yellow and blue mixing and making it a green. but we're going to have a little bit of yellow, white, and orange on the one higher corner on the right, and then a little strip of it down on the opposite side where your sun just kind of shows through again on the other side of the mountains. So add a little bit of yellow and a little bit of white and a little bit of red. And I just have the basics, apple barrel, lemon yellow, and oops, I'm still going to use all that white. We'll be using quite a bit of white in this painting, so make sure you have plenty on standby. But yeah, I got the apple barrel lemon, apple barrel red, lemon yellow and red, and then I think it's a Deco Art white. Just a tiny touch of red is all you're going to need to make that sky reddish orange with the yellows. And you'll see you're just going to want to pick up just a tiny bit of yellow on, say, one side, a little bit of red on the other, and white, and then you're just going to swirl it in circular motions. Oh, that's the yellow and the white in circular motions, and then soften it out with a little more white as you need. And then that's going to give us kind of an idea of where our sun is really going to shine through over the mountain edge. And then soften it up. Make sure you get the sides of your canvas, if you're not going to frame it. You're going to want to have basically pretty much what you're doing on the front of the canvas to kind of continue over into the sides of your canvas, so it looks basically finished. And picking up a little more white here, just softening up those colors, softening up the yellow, and catching that on the sides again. And it's okay if you hit the pencil sketching that you... Alright, so I picked up a little bit of red and a little bit of white, and I'm just kind of starting to incorporate that color in with the yellow, and it should start making it a pretty little bit of an orangey hue. And softening it up again with that white. Adding a little more yellow. And there's that orange coming through. And a little more yellow and white down there where the sun is really going to be shining. Remembering to get the top of your canvas as well. And blending it all nice. You want a little bit more streaks of red, darker reddish oranges coming through. Add a little more red. If you want a little bit lighter in the area where your sun is actually at, pick up the white. Then soften it through there and just keep working that yellow, red, and white until you're happy with that corner. And be sure to tie in those colors onto the sides of your canvas. Sorry, I'm a little off camera there, but I'm just doing exactly the same kind of circular motion. Just swirling the brush around and blending as I go. This area here I'm lightening up quite a bit because it'll start fading into blue and white. But we won't be doing that until after that dries quite a bit. Now with those same colors, we're going to continue over here. There's just this little strip of yellowy orange color kind of going through on the other side of the mountains. And below that's like a very faded light blue that we'll work on later. For now, we're just going to pick up a little bit of yellow, white, and orange and continue that over on the other side. And I'm just adding a little bit of paint. There's not very much. It'll go a long way. And if it ends up being a little too bright, tone it down with some white. Here to get your sides. Tone it down a little more. And the white just kind of fades it all out a little bit. There we go. That's a lot better. It's getting a little too bright and too yellowy, and it needs to be quite a bit lighter. And then I'm just kind of trying to make both sides of that mountain have the same kind of yellow, orangey mood to it on each side. Okay, so next we can work a little bit on our mountains themselves. Put the white brush away, rinse it out, let it rinse off in the water. You can get your detail brush, just a little 2-inch detail brush, and a little bit of black, and we'll kind of start outlining our mountain peaks a little bit so they're a little more distinct, so that you don't lose them in the paints that you're using in the sky. Yeah. Just follow those lines that you originally drew out with your pencil. And we're giving you a little more defined area of your mountains there. Just picking up a little bit. Don't pick up too heavy of your paint. It's always good to go light, and then if you need to go darker, you can always pick up more paint, but you definitely don't want a lot of paint on your little detail brush. Just follow your lines. following those original slopes that I drew out with a pencil, and it's already just starting to look a lot more like a mountain ridge anyway. Take your time, and if you need to pause it, pause the video, or you can even fast forward if you're faster than me. But yeah, I'm just going to fine tune some of these tweaks, make sure they're pointing properly, proper points in your mountains. You start out with just a little bit of paint on your brush and define your mountain peaks, and then just pick up a little more paint as you go. Make them a little more prominent. Test your sky, see if it's dry enough for us to add in our whites and blues. Then we can move on to that. Of course, now that the black paint is on the mountain ridge outlines, it's gonna need to let those dry a little bit. But in the meantime, we can maybe pick up some red and try to start giving that reddish, dark red and black sort of a hue with your number 1 inch, not number 1, but with your 1 inch wide brush. Make sure it's rinsed off real well and dried. You can pick up some red, and I'm going to start filling that side in just a little bit there. And it's okay if the black paint still isn't totally dry, because it will all come together. But this gives us an idea of our shadowing right through here. Just kind of getting that in place and letting it dry afterwards for a while. And then we'll work on it some more. A little bit of yellow and a little bit of red. But picked up a little bit more red. It's hard to tell in the video, but it's a pretty dark red, and that's okay. It'll lighten up as it dries. Okay, the sky feels pretty dry, so I'm going to rinse the brush and get some blue. I just have primary blue, also from Apple Barrel. I'm going to put a little bit of that on the plate, and actually, it's not the primary blue. I think I'm using the, looks like the teal blue. So teal blue, not primary. We'll use the primary blue later. But for now, you're just going to be using a little bit of the teal blue and white. Make sure, and you're going to, it starts out dark at the top, and then it's just going to fade down into dark up here, and then it's just going to pick up whites, a lot of white, and fade into the orange. And it's going to do that both on sides and down below. So a little bit of blue, a little bit of white, and just start at the top of your canvas, just side to side. And come across that, and just make sure you get the top of your canvas. If you're not going to frame it, you want it to be complete, edges and front everywhere. And pick up a little bit of white and start blending it out. And it was only just a tiny little bit of blue. The rest is pretty much white, and that will all start blending and fading from the top of your canvas going down until it reaches your mountain peaks and the orangey part of the sky. Quite a bit of white right through there. Just adding some more white, blending it right into the yellow orange that we had there. And then working our way back up. Oops. That's what happens when you don't let your paint dry enough, but that's okay. That's the nice thing about acrylic is it's easily fixed. You can paint, when it dries off a little bit more, you can fix it and paint right over it. Now I'm just blending, like really with a dry brush. I'm just kind of blending and adding a little bit of white, very, very little, just to soften it all up, and doing those circular motions. Strip down below, really just a tiny little touch of blue and white, and just kind of going in between that mountain ridge and the orange of the sky, and then softening it up with white, and then it gives you that just that hazy light blue sky right below the orange, and just above your darker blue mountain ridge that's off in the distance. And then there's the mountain ridge that we're going to go darker blues. And take your small detail brush with that blue and follow that line that we originally drew with pencil. And then just line it out with the blue, keeping it dark. Take it all the way up to the side of the main mountain. And of course, around to the side, on the side of the canvas. And then start filling it in. You can pick up some white too, just to add a little more, kind of a very far off in the distance that looks like little dips and ravines and lines, jagged lines and whatnot through the actual mountain ridge going across there. And it does have a couple of different variations of the blue shaded through it, and it's very random. It's not like It's so far away in the distance that it doesn't matter, where those lines are, where it's a little darker and where it's a little lighter. What matters is that it is a little darker and a little lighter in areas, because it just gives it some more definition that's off in the distance. Now we're going to be focusing on our hills. And those are just all in black for now. That first one, anyway. It's pretty dark. So with your wide 1-inch wide, pick up some black. And make sure that it's kind of flat. And then on the flat side of that brush, just follow that first hill. Just line it out with your black paint. This side is kind of narrow, so you don't want to go too far down with the black. Just kind of a narrow little strip of the black, and take it kind of down to about the midway mark of your mountain, and then hook it right up to the other side. And then have it meet that top area that we darkened already on the mountain. Just keep filling in that first sketch of that darker hill. It's a little wider on this side, so I'm adding a little more black and taking that a little bit wider and then narrower on the other side. So yeah, wide strip of black on this side, fill it all in. Continue over to the other side, just a little narrower. Then we can start adding some shadowy areas through our mountains, through our hills anyway. There's some dark areas they look like little tree groves of trees that are shadows, really, at a far distance. So I'm go back and forth a little bit, and we'll work a little bit on the mountain, then we'll go down and work a little bit more on the hills, and just kind of bouncing back and forth while things dry out a little bit. Here I'm just doing some shadows in the mountain ridge over here, and this is going to be done in stages, in layers. But I'm looking at the dark little areas that are in the image itself, in the photo reference, and picking up a little bit of blue and black over there, and it looks like it's a little bit over on the side, dark shadowy areas with blues and blacks. Got my primary blue there. swooping up a little bit there. I think that that's fairly dark on this side of the mountain. It's have the same blacks and blues. And if it's a little too dark, you can pick up your white and soften it out. Because the mountain does have quite a few dark shadows and then lighter shadows. And I think it's pretty white, kind of up and through here. Maybe a hint of blue. And turning your brush on its edge again to kind of follow through that line. And lighten that up. And give it a little bit smoky look. With your, looks like maybe some light colored snow going along there. And there's that. That's light enough. We can just remember that that's going to have some greens in it and definitely more reds and that sort of thing. But I also want to make sure I know where the strip of the sunbeams are going to be going, and sunbeams are going to be hitting like right around and through the top areas here, and so I need to make sure that's fairly light so that the sunlight's hitting it properly and lighting it up some. It's going to be hitting this ridge quite a bit too. Now I'm just adding a few more ridges through the mountainside there, based on just kind of looking at the image itself and seeing where the dark areas are and the light areas, and picking up a little bit of blue and white where it's kind of light, and then darker blacks where I see what look kind of like ravines or ridges in the mountains. I'm seeing that ridge right there. It looks kind of like a zigzag. And I'm just kind of filling that in with the darker shadowy area. It makes it look like a ravine down in there. And then softening it out with some of the white. Remember, this is all in stages. We're going to be going over this in layers and fine-tuning our lines and our ridges. I see a lot of shadowy areas up in the top areas of the mountains. They'll be faded out more with the sunlight when we bring that in, but for now we want to get our shadows in there so that we have them fairly in place. And I saw a little bit darker over here. It's pretty dark on this side of the mountain, but just do some little streaks really is all it is, with some black and white. Just kind of making little lines and streaks through this mountainside. And then picking up some more light blues and whites. And then blacks where I think I saw a shadow and throwing that in there. I'm just giving it that definition, and it's pretty dark at the base as well, so just kind of wispy strokes through there, connecting them to that dark hillside. And it's kind of lighter right through here. And just etching out some white, just a little bit on the edge of the brush, just to really fine tune that top ridge portion of the mountain. This is all going to be green really through here, so I'm not going to worry about that too much. But to get the shadows in, trying to define those to a degree. And at this point, really, you guys, it's kind of, you're making this mountain your own. So, you know, if you want to follow as close as you can to the image in the photograph, then go for it. But as long as you've got your main peaks in place and you've got some lines going through for some shadow areas and lighter areas and darker areas, your mountain's going to turn out super cool. They just do. Mountains, you know, as long as you give it those different contrasting shadow, dark areas and lighter areas. I'm going to go ahead and with a little bit more of that red and yellow, I'm going to try to find where I think the sunlight, a ray of light's going to be shooting across the top of those mountain peaks. And I'm just going to kind of get an idea of like where the sun is going to have its beam coming across the mountains and where it's going to be hitting. And then I'm just going to make those a little bit, make them pop a little bit with the yellow and orange. Just a little bit on your medium round brush. Oh, that's a little bit of red, a little bit of orange together, and just kind of giving it some of that sunlight color that's going to be hitting the mountain. And blend it together and have it kind of fade away. And we'll fine tune all of this as well, the more into it we get, but at least giving us an idea of where the sun's going to be really making the mountainside stand out and look real bright. And just blending out that red and yellow combination. So I got a little bit of black there to like recreate that ridge, because it does look a little bit deeper, like a deeper cut in the mountainside there. And then softening it up with some more of that yellow. Of course, now when you have too many colors at the same time and they're all white, it can get tricky because then you're just moving the paint around and you're not really adding more color. It's just playing in mud at that point. So you've got to learn to decide if the paints are still a little too wet, not to add any more for a little while. Let it dry a little bit. So picking up a little bit of white and making that mountain peak just a little bit wider and lighter. And at this point, it's probably find where some more shadows are happening up there in that upper, well, lower top part of that ridge. Think that I need to make my light a little higher up on this range over here, this mountain peak. And I think the light needs to come up just a little higher. And you guys, really the part that's going to take the longest, but has the most detail, is definitely the mountain. So we're taking our time with this because the rest of it's going to go pretty fast and easy. That's dried enough that I picked up a little more yellow and red, and I'm just going to start making this really glow on this side of the mountain where the sun peeks out, where the sun will be peeking out anyway. Just yellows and reds and softening that side up and brightening it up and getting it to glow. And we don't have to go too far down because that's going to be, it's going to get lighter as the further down we get, and then start fading into like a green color. So really just this one little section of the mountain is going to be this pretty reddish orange glow. And make sure you kind of match it on the sides of your canvas as well. I picked up the white and I'm just defining and highlighting those ridges just so that they really stand out a little bit more. And then blending them out so they kind of disappear into the shadows on the sides of the mountains. trying to line up to decide where that sunbeam is going to be shooting across from the actual sun itself and how it's going to hit the mountain just right. We're bringing in a little bit more of that yellow up there where the... Yeah, I want to make sure that that sunbeam is really going to actually lines up properly. And then going back in with some of that black and just redefining those darker shadowy areas in the mountain. See a little bit of a dark ridge through here a little bit. There's a little bit of dark up in here too. I will most likely be going back and forth with those blues and the whites and then the blacks and then until I like kind of like the shadows a little bit more. You know, you can put a shadow somewhere and then look at it a little later and think that that's not quite right. So you can go back in and lighten it up if you realize it's probably a section that needed to be lighter, not darker. You know, at any point that you decide, you know, these are perfect, just I'm going to leave them exactly like this, then definitely do that. You can fast forward through this. But I love all the different dimensions that this mountain range has. You know, so many little dark hidden valleys and coves, you know, compared to, and then in contrast to the light areas that really kind of stand out. And after it dries a little, if you see a part where it's like, oh, I probably should have made that a little lighter, then you can come through with some white and some blue and lighten it up a little bit. I'll probably be doing that a lot with this mountain, just experimenting on shades, lights, and darks, and yeah, I gotta make that go up a little bit higher still. You know, it doesn't make sense if a sunbeam can't actually hit that area where I've made it lighter. softening and lightening and brightening a little bit more every layer, every stage. So if there's a little bit of snow peeking through in parts of this area, so lightening up and whitening up some of that. Flattering that a little bit more along that peak. And a few more little ridges and then softening up. It's very experimental. And if you see a technique that you really like, and you want to do that same technique in a few more areas of the mountain, go for it, you know? This is where the creativity starts coming in. Now I'm just kind of making these lines going up and down so that it goes in the right direction, that the mountain going down the mountain versus sideways or weird directions. So I've got my music going in the background. Somebody had suggested I play some sort of music while I'm doing tutorials so that if I stop talking, then, and you still hear the music going, you know that you didn't lose sound in the video. But I've noticed sometimes I actually lose sound on the music, so I'm not sure if either way, which way is the better way to go. I'm just bringing a little more red up into this place. See how I like that. And get it to kind of glow a little more with some white. Some white and yellow in with the red. Starting to look pretty colorful. Nice. Now I'm starting to see some snowy areas on the other sides of the mountains. So I'm bringing some snow in with some white and just a tiny bit just on the tip of your medium round and just doing little touches here and there, seeing if you like it. And if it's not quite right, you can just pick up some darker and fix it and change it up. That's the beauty of acrylic. You can always change that color after it dries a little bit. Well, this mountain's kind of a light, this side of the mountain is like a light blue up towards the top, but then it gets kind of dark down below quite a bit dark, but But it is pretty blue over here. Actually, make those mountains look a little more rocky up there at the top. And this is a little bit lighter in some areas. A little more jaggedy on the other side. Bring in a little more red, make it a little more fiery. Fiery mountainside where the sun's gonna hit it. Starting to look about right. I'm gonna fix this sky a little bit more around the peak of that mountain. Basically getting a little hint of blue and white and bringing that back in and blending it into the sky up there and down along the mountains, very edge of the mountain. Just fix that a little bit, add a little bit of white, soften it up. I'm really just kind of scrubbing with my medium brush, very little bit of white on there, and then just kind of holding it in place and then rubbing to blend it all out. Just smoothing it out, rubbing it very lightly with just a hint of white. Very softly. And just a tiny bit of paint. Add a little bit of red right through here. Just to make it a little more dynamic. Just a hint of like red in the sky, soften it out. If it's a little too dynamic. It's pretty good. So with a little bit of blue and yellow, so you can start mixing some green. And then just kind of brushing that through in like that swooping motion back and forth. Keeping it looking like it's kind of curving. You can go a little more blue, a little less yellow, and make it a darker green. You can add a little more yellow to make it a little more lighter green. And then pick up your wide brush again just to give it that fun bristly textury kind of a feel to the mountainside. A little bit of yellow, a little bit of blue, and do a stippling effect where you just you can brush and dab and scrub basically back and forth. I just picked up a little extra yellow for the areas where the sun might be making a little bit brighter. I've got a little bit of black, kind of putting in some shadows, some little shadowy areas. Then we can soften it back out with some of the green again, but this gives you some more dimension to the side of this mountain. Just kind of dabbing. And very light on the paint. It doesn't take much at all. And then you just kind of scrub it out into those little areas. I'm just kind of holding it down and then wiggling it and scrubbing to kind of texturize it. Yellow with the blue. Kind of giving it some of that green shadowy effect on the other side of the ravine. You can do a little bit of yellow and white just to make it highlight those areas where the sun might hit it a little bit brighter in those parts. Now I'm just texturing. I'm just testing out a little bit of light, a little bit of dark, giving it highlights, lowlights, and picking up some white here, just kind of texturing this area. Some more little giving it a little more definition through here and there. It's with some light, very, very light little bit of paint on the brush. Picked up a little bit of blue, softening that up through there. So now, what about this point, if you start making it your very own, now you've got your basic ridges in place. You can color them however you want, I mean, if you want to stick to the rule of light, then obviously it's going to be lighter on the side that the sun is shining. But I mean, there are those definite ridges and ravines that are just going to be shadowed. And that just really makes your mountains look more defined, really. And down here, it looks like there's some light little things going on down in the valley down here. A little bit of whites and yellows just kind of popping out down below. Now in the original photo, it looks almost like there's a little stream and maybe some buildings, but I decided not to go all out like that. I want mine totally in nature. So my summer Mountain Majesty is all just natural. Now working down here on the hillside, that's going to be a lot more greens. Since we've already started putting yellows and blues together for our greens, we're going to continue through our hillsides anyway. And with the same sort of stippling effect with blues and yellows, blending them as they start playing around on the canvas. You can do the lights and darker green combinations on the wide flat brush. And of course, we're going to come back and work some more on this mountain. It's, again, in stages. I have to do a little more detail on different parts of the mountain. But for now, we'll get this filled in down here in this green, meadowy looking hillside. And just kind of sponge all the way up to the black. And again, getting those sides. And we're just going to fill all the way in to the stream, really. I mean, there's going to be some darker areas where we've got those tree coves or whatever. Little darker tree areas and then lighter areas. But for the most part, it's going to be all green. But here's just like along this line, we've got some dark, basically tree lines coming along through here. And then it gets a little bit shadowy right up in here. So with a little bit of your darker greens, by adding a little extra black, you can add the shadow there. You can lighten it up with the yellows, basically the same way you did the mountainside there. And we're going to have this mainly greens by doing that black and yellow and blue. And then just going along that tree line, making it more green meadows, kind of coming through there. A little too green, so I'm adding some more white in. And just stippling all the way down with that yellow and blue, touching my sides. I'm off canvas, but I'm really just doing the same thing there. There we go. Picking up a little more black and making this a little more defined in through here. You notice we're not rinsing our brush at all. We keep coming up and just testing the light, how dry my mountains are getting, so that I can maybe run a sunbeam across it to determine to make sure that my light parts of my mountain are in place. But I keep coming back. I mean, we'll be bouncing back and forth, a little bit of mountain, a little bit of meadow, but get that green and blue together just a little bit, making sure your brush is fairly bristly so it can give it the right texture, and then just dabbing. So I picked up black and I'm just kind of defining those darker shadowed areas of the hills a little bit more. And softening at the same time, you know, just kind of blending them out so that they kind of seamlessly blend into the hills. And then right back to the meadow again with yellows and blues, so that I have different texture, shadowing shades of meadow green. And always catching those sides. And then I'm just going to be working my way down with this green texturing effect, pretty much all the way down to the stream itself. And it does get lighter. The meadows start getting lighter the lower down the canvas you go. So you may have to pick up extra yellow and lighten it up. Maybe even a little bit of white with your yellow. And depending on the style of the paint and how much you have on your brush, that'll be really up to you. To determine how much of another color to pick up. If you've got too much blue, pick up more yellow. Too much yellow, pick up more blue. And I'm going through a lot of yellow here because it's very green. And the way to make it green is with more yellow and, of course, the blue. Keeping your wide flat brush relatively fluffed up for bristles. You want that texture in there when you do your dabbing. You're dabbing and you're sponging just right on the tip of the bristles. And I'll go right over that bluer area and make it more green. But it gives it that nice dimension in those different highs and lows in the meadow with those different colors kind of blended together. And then you can go right up to the very edge or the bank of the stream there. In fact, you can even go right over it if you want. It's not a big deal because the stream's going to be mainly black. I'm just re-looking at this and I'm thinking that the stream actually needs to be a little lower. So I'm going to go even further down with this meadow and this green. And I'm going to put my stream just a little bit lower on the canvas. And I'm adding in a little more shadow, a little more shaded areas. Where more trees are going to be, or tree areas. And then more blues and yellows all the way down to the water's edge where the stream is going to be. Same thing, adding a little bit of yellow and a little bit of blue together on the bristles, the very tip of the bristles, and then stifling. Just put a little more black on my palette so that I can start doing my stream here. And that's really just side to side, all black. And we'll just kind of make it kind of like wandering up a little, down a little bit, up a little bit, kind of. Too worried about the edges of the stream just yet. We'll fine tune those as we go along. But to get that stream in place, then we can continue on and finish our flowery areas too. You do want that middle part to be just a little wider. And then now all this lower part's going to be greenery as well. But there's going to be a lot of shadows in there too, because the closer we get to the bottom of the canvas, you're going to see a lot of the stems that are coming through the flowers. And the sun's going to be lighting up a lot of the center area right there. So that's going to be lighter green, but all the edges are going to be shadowed a little bit darker because flowers going to be coming up through those. We're going to have flowers kind of wisping this way and that way, with stems kind of showing up and going even further past the stream itself. So it's probably, we'll go into more detail on that when we get to that stage, but just to give you an idea of what to look forward to. So I took a little break. I got some fresh water. My brushes are all cleaned and dried out. We got more paper towel on standby. And we're gonna continue on with that lower part of the meadows where all the really close-up flowers are gonna be. And we're gonna start doing the whole yellows and blues again. And I think I got some hunter green that I'm gonna bring in as well. It's a little bit darker so that it'll help add those little shadows into the lower part of the image itself, of the painting. So yeah, all these stems that are going to be growing, growing up from the top of or from the bottom of the canvas are going to be shadowing and making things really dark. So with that bristly wide brush there, and a little bit of blue, a little bit of yellow, we start doing that kind of a sponging motion, just a little bit of yellow, a little bit of blue, and maybe a little bit of hunter green, and just start stippling, dabbing, and sponging all around, and it gives that cool texture going through your meadow. Don't forget to get the bottoms and the sides of your canvas. I'm picking up some dark yellows and blacks, making it look kind of shadowy, really shadowy down on the corners and the lower parts of your canvas. And then you can do right along the water's edge there too. You just dab and go right up to it and a little bit over it, making it kind of messy along your stream. That makes it a little more natural. And then it's going to be lighter in the center where the sun's going to be really hitting it a little bit more. And just anywhere that you saw that your canvas didn't get completely covered with the meadow greens, you can just dab and stipple everywhere. Some more greens and yellows, blues, greens, hunter green, yellow, and dab everywhere, and spongy circular motions. Pick up a little extra yellow when you get to the center area, and then the darker ones when you get to the corners, outer edges. So I've got some of that black going and really just adding little areas where it's going to be very shadowy from the stems, kind of shadowing all of the grass up close. And getting that dark, getting those dark areas in, and then I'll add more green all around them. So you want it fairly dark, right up close, which would be like right at the base of the canvas. Some more green combination going on with the blues and yellows. And I still have some of that black on my brush, so it's going to have shadowy, darker bits going on in it. And that's all okay. I mean, it's a wild mountain meadow, so there's going to be all sorts of different colors blending together, as long as you keep them kind of in the same family of yellows and blues and greens. There's a little hint of blacks here and there, and lighter right there in the center where the sun is going to come down and hit that area of the meadow. That's going to be brighter. Oh, it's just a matter of texturing everything and finishing off the darker parts down below with greens and blacks. And I'm never putting too much paint on my brush. I'd rather just pick up a little dab of each color and blend it and texture it. And if I need more, I'll pick up more, but it's just easier for me to do a little bit at a time and then build up on it versus adding way too much and then having to wait for it to dry because it's so thick and heavy. And then I gotta get my edges and my sides of my canvas. You can't see what I'm doing, but I'm just doing the same exact technique, but just on my edges so that it all looks the same, going all the way around. And then I'm just adding in a little more shadow with some more black. If you look at the picture, that's really, really dark right in through here around all these little flowers. And that's basically the look I'm working on now, is getting all those shadowy areas in there that the flowers are causing. And it's very random, you know, I mean, our flowers going to be put in there very random, wildly placed, as wild flowers are. A little bit of blue, a little bit of yellow, up a little more hunter green. Just blending it out. turn your brush different ways, you know, that also adds to that whole defining of the natural way of the wild grasses growing in different directions by turning your brush this way and that way as you're stippling and sponging. So now I'm going to be putting in some more defined darker hill areas up above, making that a little more textured basically right through there. And it looks like it gets a little bit wider and darker right through here, the lower base of the mountain. And then this area has little hints of trees kind of popping out. And we'll work on those a little bit. There's more dark areas right through here. So just with black, lightly on the bristles, just the tips of the bristles of your brush. Add that black and then just dab, lightly dab into the areas that have those shadowy lines going down. That's another little pre-grove area that just kind of follows the hillside a little bit. Looks like there's a little bit of shadowy area right through here. Of some darker bushes or trees off in the distance. And then these are kind of tree areas right here too. So with that same flat, bristly, hardier brush, add a little more shadow in the different areas, and those kind of signify shadows of all the meadow flowers back there too, that are casting different light and dark shadows throughout. And you do have what looks like some trees, kind of a little more defined, like right through here. And I mean, take your little detail brush and just do a few little branches just to kind of help guide you as to where to place your bushel of trees. It looks like just like a couple of trees together. I mean, this is impressionism, so there's no serious real detail to the tree, but with a little bit of light, I've got whites and green, well, white and yellow right now, just kind of trying to create a sort of idea of a group of trees kind of bundled together right there. And we'll probably have to do this one in layers as well, just to make it really stand out like a group of trees. But to get you going, some light colors, just yellows and whites, dabbing around and making it kind of like a mound of trees. And then another little mound of trees or something, like a group of bushy trees right through here too. A little bit of blue and yellow just on the tip of your detail brush and dabbing kind of in a big round area. So it's like a big round bush of trees. As soon as that, I mean, we're going to lighten it up where the sun's hitting it. You highlight those edges of the trees, but we'll come back, I think, and let that dry a little bit. So while the lower part's drying some more, we're gonna try to get some of these sunbeams going across so that we have an idea. Make sure that we have our highlights of our mountains in the right places for our sun to hit, say like and really cause these edges to light up a little bit more. And even throw in some little snowy areas, patches of snow that maybe haven't melted off yet. But the sun's going to be hitting those areas and really making them bright too. So and I'm just going to define some of those ridges a little bit more and then have them kind of blend out into the sides of each of those ridges. And I'm trailing down, making it messy, nothing fancy. Little patches of snow maybe that haven't melted off yet. And there's a few little bits of white little trails of snow that kind of come down into the grassy areas of the mountainside. And then use some little bits of flowers that are really standing out from highlights from the sun hitting. But definitely some little trickles of white, possibly just where the snow hasn't melted just yet, kind of coming through this greener area of the mountain. Just kind of random little ridges that haven't melted out yet, melted off. I'm just barely dabbing with just a tiny little bit of white on my brush. Just dabbing in some areas. And then adding a little more ridge line through some of these higher ridge areas. That really defines where there's a ridge and where there's a shadowy area, just by adding that little bit of white, making it really stand out. See, and this is more just me. It's not really what I see in the picture anymore. It's just what I think would look cool in my mountains. Just a few more defined white lines and streaks kind of bringing out, making the mountain look a little more defined in areas. Just adding a few more lines that I want there, not necessarily that are in the picture. So if you don't want them, you don't have to have them. I'm really liking the white kind of standing out and making the whole mountain pop a little bit more. And then picking up a black and just kind of softening the white out, making them a little bit more narrow. If it was too wide in a certain area, softening it out, narrowing it out a little bit more with the black. And then I see a little more blue right through here. I'm going to add some more blue highlights into some of these darker areas of this side of the mountain. So I'm just picking up some blue and kind of bringing that back in a little bit more. Definitely a very colorful mountain. Oops. And if you drip a little somewhere and you don't want it there, that's the beauty of acrylic. You can wait for it to dry just a little bit and then you can color over it in a different paint color. So now here I'm just giving a little more shadowy area with the darker shadows of the blue. And more black to shadow more areas of the black. A lot of ravines going down this mountain. This side was light colored, but it's actually dark on that side. So I'm going to darken it back up. Just along the edge, going down. A little bit more dark up in here too. You gotta trust the process, they say. Drip of blue right there. Just it's gone now. That's now just gonna kind of give a little more movement to our shadowy parts of our hills. And just causing a little more defined shadowing up there along the white parts of the mountains, white ravines. It's pretty good. Rinse that out a little bit, and let's come back in and try to get those little areas where the sun's going to hit to be a little bit brighter. Just a little bit of white and yellow, brightening those spots up a little bit more where the sunbeam is going to catch them. And then make sure it's kind of like a straight line. I'm imagining a straight line going across, but it might be easier just to fold a piece of paper and line it out, but we'll work on it just a little bit more before I do that. Pretty straight. If I take this paper, fold it in half, I can kind of line it up where the sun is going to be and have it hit picking up a little bit of white and yellow. Run this line, go across just along the paper's edge to give it that sunbeam. Very lightly. I didn't have hardly any paint on there. It was just enough to give it a little glowy. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit more orangey hue with the red, the yellow, and the white. And now that I have a line kind of in that area, I'm going to make it pop just a little bit more wherever the line was hitting. I wasn't kidding that the mountain is what takes the longest in this whole painting. But it's going to be gorgeous once it's done. So back to the paper, lining it up. We've got a couple of different diagonals that kind of go through it. This one's a little bit shorter. It just kind of stops at the second from the end peak. And this one will make a little bit more defined. A little bit of pink, a little bit of red, a little bit of yellow. Get that second one. About there. Okay. That's a good start. That gives us an idea of where our sun is going to be as well. I'm just going to give it one more little run of light of sunbeams coming through. Very lightly, a little bit of white, a little bit of yellow. Let's do it again right here. And I can brighten up those areas now where I'm seeing the sunbeam hit. I'm just going to soften up this hill a little bit more, get it to glow just a little bit more. So with that red and yellow going side to side, it's looking pretty good. Actually, I think I need to bring this ridge up just a little bit more. Let's get some darker red and black. Make this ridge line go straight across a little more and make our sun come out and peek out through there just a little higher up. So bringing our mountain up a little higher, adding a new kind of a ridge, which just will it'll make more sense this way. Get some black and red together and have it just kind of peeking out from the other side of that ridge there. Now that I've made my ridge line a little higher, I gotta continue it over onto the side of the canvas. Now when we put in our sun, it'll come and peek out top of that area and come down on everything a little bit more realistically. Make it a little more practical. Yeah. And when I make those lines, it'll come down. Have some more lines coming down through here too. And make that light, that ball of sun there in the top really stand out. Okay, so my lower trees are dry, so we're gonna build them up a little bit more with some more white and yellow and green. Just picking up some hunter green and yellows and making this really kind of stand out, this little bush, this bushel of trees over here in the grove. Same with this one, highlighting the ends on the edges where the sun's going to be hitting it with some yellow and green. And then just dabbing a little bit, or just a little bit on the tip of your brush, just dabbing and brightening up the little tree line. The sun's hitting that right on the edge of it there, making it a little bit brighter there. And I'm hitting it on this one a little bit, making it a little bit brighter as well. Starting to look more like a tree. Just really making it pop with some more white. A little bit of white and yellow, really make it pop. Just on the tip. And that's dabbing. There you go. Now it's starting to look like something. Yellows and whites will really bring out your greenery. And then a little bit of black, maybe a little bit of hunter green, and then dab just in the lower areas to just create some shadow, just to define them a little bit more. All right, now over here in this little grove, there's like a line of trees. And so with that same medium brush and some black, you just kind of dab up to a point and then go a little wider as you come down to the shaded area. And just make what looks like little tree lines with little points coming up. And you can continue those down as far as you want. And then they're just kind of going up and sloping up and going a little bit higher as they go up the hillside. And a little higher. And of course, some randomly higher than others. A little short one there in the back. So you got like the little line of trees there. Kind of do the same over on this side. Some little, what looks to be, they could be trees. They might just be little bits of trees right through here. Same thing, just going up into a little point. spaced out a little bit. It's random ups and down points of what look like trees. See if that's dry a little bit. You might be able to brighten that area up some with some reds and yellows. Maybe get the start of our sun going up there. You know our sun's going to be right over here in the corner, and kind of let it swirl out if it's dry enough. It may not be, we'll see. But do the circular motion. Oh, see, it just picked up a little bit of black, so it's not quite dark enough, or it's not quite dry enough. But you can soften that out, even if it did, you can soften that out with the white. And blend it out. So we'll stop here tomorrow, or the part 2. We'll finish up the sunbeams, the sky, the sun in the sky, and we'll do all of our flowers and everything. I'm gonna get the little meadow going off and lighten all of that up. And well, actually, I think we have time to do a little bit of that. We can put some of our meadow flowers in with our wide brush, our wide bristly brush. Pick up a little bit of white and yellow just on the tip of the bristles, just like that. And we're just gonna dab. We're gonna dab these light little meadow flowers, kind of going through all the green areas. Very randomly, sporadically, whites and yellows. Some spots will be a little more yellow than others. Some will be more white than others, and that's okay. So we're just going to finish turning and twisting and turning our paintbrush with just a little bit of yellow and a little bit of white just on the tip. And we're just turning it this way and that, randomly putting pretty white and yellow little dotted flowers all throughout the meadow. And it looks like there's a little bit coming up around this hill. Both yellows and whites again. Get they're pretty far off in the distance, so they can be a little smaller, a little lighter dotting effect. And then maybe just a little more down here, over here a little bit, just sporadically sprinkling the whites and yellows all along the meadows and hills. And build it up a little bit if you want it a little bit brighter in certain areas. And just keep on going. I'm just adding a little more yellow in with the yellow that's already there just to make it a little bit brighter. I'm just dotting. I see a little bit of white and yellows right there along the water's bank, the river bank there. And you can actually have it kind of go right into the water a little bit, just like it's like they're just kind of growing over the water and over the bank a little bit. It gives it a little more natural, wild flower look to it. And just dab along. Get a little bit up on this top hill. It's very far in the distance, so if you go a little bit lighter, they're just they're just tiny little specks that just kind of look like the idea of flowers growing along that hillside. No real detail though, just tiny little specks. Make sure you get your sides of your canvas. And then I've thrown a little bit of yellow down there in the lower valley, just at the base of the mountain. Just adding a little bit more interest, and it ties all those yellows in as well. Get a little bit over on this side. There's those tiny little details of yellows and whites. Okay, next we can do some pink, and that's just by putting a little bit of red and white together. You can mix it on your palette a little bit and see if it's pink enough for you. That's a little light, so I'm going to add some more red, make it just a little bit brighter pink. And again, you just kind of randomly in between your yellow and white flowers, you can put a little bit of pink in there. I'm rinsing the yellow and white off a little bit so that it might help brighten up the pink flowers a little bit more. Make sure it's good and dry and your bristles are fluffed up nice. Get that pink and that red and white together, just right there on the tip like that. And then just tiny little dabs in different areas along your meadow. Some towards the front, some in the back, some bigger, some smaller. I'm getting a little bit right along the hill, at least that first hill. The far back one, you really don't see a lot of color, just yellows mainly and whites. But definitely get more prominent the closer you get to the lower part of the canvas. Those flowers just come right into focus. Around. You can go ahead and add a little bit of purple next, I think. You got your yellows and your whites and your pinks. Well, let's make our pink just a little bit darker. Make them pop just a little bit more by adding more red to the pink and to the red and white of the pink. And you add just a little bit darker on top of that and just make them pop out just a little bit more. And then I think it's ready for some purple. So grab your purple paint and we'll get a little bit of that on the palette, on your plate. Not a whole lot. There's just a few little hints of purple flowers kind of blending in with the pinks and the yellows and the white flowers. So you just need a little tiny bit on the tip of your brush and go ahead and dab some purple in to a few different places in between your pink and white flowers, on your pink and yellow flowers. Just a little dab here and there, nothing too much. Okay, it's looking pretty good. Well, I think we'll go ahead and stop at that further back meadow and go on to part two, where we finish the sky, get our bigger flowers up front, and fill all of everything in and finish it off. So I think that's about it for today, and we will see you in part two.